Dillian, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. Just back to training. Still smiling, still happy. And excited for the rematch. I'm just glad that there's not a lot of time in between. Like, some people say, you should take 6 months off. You should fight someone else. You should have a couple of confidence fights. You should change your coaches. I'm like, listen, the difference between me and you guys is I'm a warrior. You guys are all cowards. You guys all like to make excuses and blame. Oh, my strength and conditioning was this. My boxing wasn't right. There was no crowds. Like, what for? Listen, I'm a warrior. I lost. I take the loss and I go back to training. And I don't think I did much wrong in the fight. I think it was in a few little bits, like probably a little bit of concentration, a bit more, and not allowing him to use the experience.
You've touched on a point there, and I agree with the the concentration bit. If I'm going to pick any faults in the first fight with Povetkin, or any problems with that, I'd say it was just a lack of concentration. I think because you are what you are, your fighting ability and your skill set and your punching power and your fitness when it's a big occasion, you make sure you're in shape and you're good for 12 rounds. We've seen that time and time again.
Yes.
Obviously, I think it was a lapse in concentration, because as fighters, we tend to turn off. We switch off for seconds of rounds. We have little breathers. We sit back. We just have a think about what work we've just done or what we're about to do. But you have to concentrate for every second of every round. And I think when Povetkin slipped inside and threw that uppercut, one, it was an awkward punch and it comes very fast because he's got fast hands, Povetkin. He's quick at his movement. His head movement's quick.
Yeah.
But it was an awkward shot that came from nowhere that kind of caught you in a zone where you was like, I didn't know if he was trying to throw a jab or he was reacting to his fate or whatever he was doing. But you stood in front of him.
I was trying to count with the hook, and he came up the middle. If you watch a fight back, you see I'm throwing my left. It's this close to his head, and his one has just come straight up the middle. But you know what it is? You train for these fights, and everyone's onto you. The guy is this, the guy is this, the guy is that. And then so you train with that in your mind. And then you get to the fight, and then you realize that you're way better, and like you realize that things that you thought would be difficult in the fight is easy, and then you sort of think, all right, maybe I should take my foot off the gas a bit and do this and see what happens. Maybe he's playing past some, because you're thinking, wait, I touched him twice with half punches and he's on the floor already. So maybe I need to, and
So from what you're saying there, Dillian, what I take from that is, because I've had it myself in fights, it's almost, you find it too easy. You're in there and you're thinking, hang on a minute, everything I've heard about it, all the build-up, his experience, his old warrior, he knows the game inside out, Olympic champion, etc., world champion. I mean, you then put him on this pedestal. Yeah. And then you're finding it easy, you're controlling the fight, you've put him over twice, and you think to yourself, right, all I've got to do now, and then you can relax a little bit and switch off mentally, and then realise the problem. You took your eye off the ball then.
Several news stories, one of which you touched on in recent weeks regarding Dillian Whyte and that enforced 4-week, 28-day suspension because he was knocked out against Alexander Povetkin. What's the latest on that?
Yeah, well, it was widely reported at the time that it was a 28-day suspension. That was never the case. I tweeted yesterday after speaking to Robert Smith that it was in fact a 48-day suspension. I actually got that wrong. It's 45 days. So Dillian Whyte has been suspended, not for 28 days, not for 48, but 45 days. Now, that decision is generally made by the ringside doctor on the night after observing someone who's been knocked out. Now, generally, if it's a stoppage, it's going to be 28 days. If it's a clean knockout, it's going to be 45 days. And that's the decision that was made. However, it was reported that it was 28. There was all sorts of uproar. I know that Frank Warren was told it was 28, and in fact, he reacted, as many people have, in one of surprise and a little concern that wasn't enough. But to be clear, within that 45 days, Dillian Whyte is not supposed to be sparring. Now, the big question is, how can people police that? How can the board police that? Well, the short answer is they can't. As with many things, they can't be expected. You can't have a board member at every single gym. We know things go on at gyms that shouldn't. However, he says he has it on good authority that Dillian Whyte is not sparring. He will not be allowed to spar until the 45 days has been completed. Once those 45 days have been completed, he will have to go through a series of tests before he is deemed fit to box. And I think one of the reactions when I tweeted last night was, there's no way that he won't be given a license. No way whatsoever. There's too much money riding on it. And when I put that to Robert Smith just about half an hour ago, his one word that he used was bollocks. He said, we treat everyone the same. Health and safety is paramount, irrespective of the size of the show. And he closed it by saying, listen, it's not the first time we've dealt with something like this. And that's true. And people can kind of be sitting there in their armchairs and making all sorts of assumptions on it. But it's up to the doctor. The doctor observed him. Apparently, Dillian Whyte came around quickly after the end of the fight, and 45 days was what was stipulated.
So as far as 168 pounds, super middleweight, you're done with that weight for good. You're only going to fight at 175.
Maybe I can fight 168, but I need first 2 fights.
Okay.
And after I can make 168. But first, 175.
Yeah, you were vocal about that, about fighting Canelo. He's fought all the way at 175, and that you would fare against him a lot better at a bigger weight class. What would be different in a fight with you and Canelo at 175 or even at like 168?
Oh man, I think that's a very important thing, the weight in boxing. So the difference are more energy, because I can make weight more easy and throw more punches. I think that's the key.